So, how are we doing today? Today, we're going to be talking about attachment styles. Another one of those topics that I was like, am I sure that I haven't done an episode on this? Like, not one has really been dedicated that I can remember anyway. And I did a quick sweep through the episode titles, but not one of them has been fully dedicated to this. And here's the thing is that our attachment styles and attachment theory in general is so integral in the whole dynamic of alienation. Understanding how our children's attachment with us became interrupted. It really all revolves around this. And the more that you know about your individual attachment style, you can really fine tune and customize your whole experience through this walk of alienation, and also how you relate to not only your partners and your friends, but your children even from afar. Attachment theory, but an attachment is basically the expectations. I guess I'm getting into it right now. I just started. I haven't even pulled my notes up yet. But attachment is, in a nutshell, expectations that we develop, yes, starting in infancy, really, about relationships in our own life, like how people behave with us, the expectations we develop on caregivers, let's say, for our base attachment style, depending on how they responded to our needs, emotional, physical, all the needs as babies, determines the skill set that we develop in order to get those needs met. And I know that a lot of you, let me just say, I know that many of you are already probably very well versed in this, but I just want to go over a little bit of the basics real quick. That way we're all up to speed the same, and then we can continue on with the episode. So it's patterns of relating, basically, to and bonding that you develop early on in life, like from your first moments, interactions with your mom or dad or whoever raised you, how they responded to you in your moments of need determined your ability to feel safe, secure, comforted, nurtured, and all the things, right? And if you didn't get what you needed in the way that you tried, then you would learn over time to adapt to that caregiver's style, if you will. And so then you would try different ways to try to get those needs met, right? Just like with anything else. I mean, in the past, when I've brought this topic up in different words, I talked about it as having like developing a skill set from a really early age that we carried with us. Sometimes we carry those skill sets with us all the way through until today, right? And don't realize that that's what we've done. We kind of just think that, oh, that's just who I am. I'm just a needy person. I'm just an anxious person. I'm just insecure, or whatever it is. If you have an anxious attachment style, then that might be something that you would say, right? We think of it more like it's me, right? I'm the one that's at fault, and this is just characteristics my parents gave me, or now it's unchangeable. But it's not. It's not true at all. Like, you can absolutely, the first, of course, is the awareness. And then if you're really truly committed to wanting to change, to maybe, like, for instance, go to a secure attachment style, which I think is goals for all of us, really. Once you have the awareness, then you can incorporate tools and mindset skills to change that over time. And that's really what I've done over the last, I don't know, however many years since I've been on this healing journey. Though in the beginning, when I started doing this, in fact, throughout, really, it wasn't in my mind that I was working to change my attachment style. I'm more focused, and you can do it however you want, but I'm more focused on my own beliefs about myself, and then my beliefs about the world, right? And those close to me, and my beliefs about my daughter, individually just worked all of that out. And I still to this day question all of those beliefs as they come up for me. And that helps me to move towards even more a secure attachment style. So let me just go over real quick. The 4 different styles of attachment basically is, first off, secure attachment. Securely attached people are usually comfortable with intimacy, and they can balance their own dependence and independence in relationships, right? They're trusting, trustworthy, and don't typically have the ups and down roller coasters that you might experience with those that are anxious or avoidant, right? or a mix of the two. The next attachment style is anxious or preoccupied, some people call it. And anxious attachment styles crave intimacy. I'm just going to give you the basic overview. I'm not going to go full into it, but crave intimacy and can be overly, I don't know if I want to use that word, but dependent, really default towards dependence on somebody, codependent, if you will, and a bit demanding, like their needs can come off as demanding in relationships, especially in romantic partner relationships, right? They worry about being abandoned. They crave closeness, may seem needy. And really with a preoccupied or anxious attachment, call it whatever you want. I'm just going to call it anxious attachment because it's easier. It gets confusing with all the words. But with an anxious attachment, the underlying belief is that I'm not okay. The person who's anxious is worried that they're not worthy, that they're not enough for whoever they're in relationship with. Dismissive attachment, or actually avoidant attachment, I'm just going to call it avoidant from here forward. With this, the characteristics are self-sufficient. I don't need anybody, I'm fine. The loner attitude, right? Like I can do this by myself. Often to the point where you maybe appear detached, uninterested maybe. People with the avoidant attachment style usually really value their own independence and fear being like engulfed or enmeshed with somebody else when they don't like that, you know? They don't want to have to rely or become dependent on a partner or anybody for that matter. It's a sign of weakness to them. That's more coming from the outside, like the take from an onlooker. But on the inside, avoidant people generally minimize their own emotional needs, right? Like, don't worry about me, I'm fine, sort of thing. And it often comes off as distant. And then the fearful attachment style, or sometimes called disorganized, desires closeness, like really, really craves the closeness, but they fear almost like death, intimacy, vulnerability, cannot stand it. Like the fear of being humiliated or embarrassed or put on display overwhelms them so much that they end up locking themselves sort of away, and they send a lot of mixed messages. Maybe they display unpredictable behavior. They're just hard to read. They're hard to get a feel for what's really going on. And depending, usually disorganized attachment style is people relate it to, and I really had to do a deep dive on this earlier this week too, because it was my impression for a long time that if you had the fearful attachment or disorganized attachment, that you must be BPD. Those two are related. Like people with BPD, there's a strong tie to the fact that most of them have a disorganized, or maybe all of them, I don't even know, have a disorganized attachment style, right? That definitely is related, but it doesn't mean that if you have a disorganized attachment style, that you are BPD. So that's just important, I think, it spoke to me anyway, and you'll hear why in a few minutes. But yeah, so that's that. So what I didn't mention is that with a secure attachment style, you have a positive model of others, and you also have a positive model of your own self, right? The way that you see your world and relating to others, everybody is good, fine. Nobody is a problem in the secure attachment style. When you're in the anxious attachment style, you have I'm the problem, a negative view of yourself, yet other people are goals. Everybody else is fantastic. I need to work to better myself so that I can be with them, so that they will like me, what have you, right? So negative view of yourself, overly positive view of everybody else that you want to be in relationship with. If you are avoidant, you have a positive model of yourself, but a negative view of the world. So it's always they're the problem. Okay? So it's not me, it's them. It's whatever they're doing. It's the people that you usually find that are avoidant are always the ones that are like, I always have bad roommates. I always just end up with the bad roommates. It's not me. I'm perfect. People should love to come and live with me, right? It's them that's the problem. I've got the worst luck. That is usually the model that we're working with avoidant, right? And then with a disorganized attachment style or fearful, however you want to say it, you have a negative model of yourself, like I am the problem and they're a problem. It's both. Like that's what keeps you confused and second guessing yourself and walking in circles to the point where you feel so isolated from the world because you can't trust yourself and you can't trust others. You desperately want to be close to others and probably to yourself too, but you feel like it's impossible because they're going to hurt you. And you know that you hurt yourself because in the disorganized attachment too, self-sabotage is really, really high. Not that it's not in other ones too. Even in a secure attachment style, you can still be a self-sabotaging secure attachment style. Anyway, but that's the basic view of all of that. Understanding where you fit in to each one of these four styles can be so helpful for your healing and also restoring connection with your kid or kiddos and your view of that connection. Because as you guys know, when I talk with you, that connection exists up in your own brain, not in some magical place in between you and your kid, not in your kid. Your kid doesn't dictate it. The connection that you feel to somebody is all generated by the thoughts that you think. And so your attachment style, both your expectations on yourself and on the world and how everybody you relate to them and to the world and they relate to you is really important to know. Many of us like walk through life not even thinking about how it is, but the expectations that we like by default, on default, have of the world. We just will take each circumstance or each relationship that we're in, we take it like happenstance, right? It's all isolated incidents that just make up one big conglomeration of whatever your experience is. But it's not. How you view the world and how you view yourself in it really determines who you choose, how you show up in each of those relationships, in each of those instances. So it's really important to understand what's fueling you toward or away from any relationship that you are in throughout your life. And though it's not necessarily super duper important, I mean, I think it can always be useful, but it's not like essential that you go back and uncover all of your childhood patterns and all that. Like, I don't think that you need to spend gobs of time really going back and uncovering and locating where attachment style started for you, why this, it doesn't really matter that much. So long as you get an idea of what makes you tick. And that's why I just broke it down into like what drives each attachment style, right? Is it that I feel inadequate? Other people are inadequate? A mix of both? Understanding your attachment style can really help to shine a light on your emotional reactions to alienation, right? Such as like when you're feeling rejected, when you're feeling hopeless or angry or whatever it is, like your in the moment reactions to whatever happens to come up throughout your day, your week, your months, whatever, as a result of alienation, not only alienation as a whole, but all the little daily things that come up as a result, of the alienation as the whole. Becoming aware of them will help you to fine tune and decide if that's the experience you want to have, like continuing on, or whether or not you want to shift, right? Understanding can really help you to find some clarity on that. Attachment styles also dictate the coping mechanisms that you currently have, like whether you're likely to persist when being rejected, whether you withdraw when you're being rejected, whether you lash out or whether you oscillate between the two. Like one second you're like, no, I'm going for it. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to persist. I'm going to keep showing up, dripping log, blah, blah, blah. Like this isn't going to bother me. No sweat. Brush your shoulders off. Keep going. And then other days when you're feeling like down in the dumps, instead you freak out and want to move away from it and want to throw your hands up and say, forget it. Which I see a lot of alienated parents oscillating between these two, right? A lot. Like sometimes within the same sitting in our calls together. And it's so, by the way, there's nothing wrong with this response. This is expected, I guess, coming from the trauma that we have. Even if you had no other traumatic events that happened in your life, let's say alienation happens to be the first real trauma that you've experienced. For the most part, if you had like a great upbringing in your mind, like things were fine, you felt like maybe you have a secure attachment style, and then alienation happened, and now you notice that you have developed tendencies to lean towards anxious or avoidant or both. That is also normal, if you will, or like common. Major life events or ongoing trauma, like what we've experienced, will absolutely change, can absolutely change your attachment, the expectations that you place into relationships. That makes sense. Attachment styles can also affect your approaches to the way that you communicate, basically. The way that you communicate, whether or not you attempt to reunify, like any sort of reunification efforts on your part, and also boundary setting with your child. We can go into the details on that, but if you are an avoidant, let's just say, and your approach to communication is to really not have it or only like sort of fear it because, oh, I know I didn't say this too. With the avoidant, especially with the avoidant attachment style, it's not that you don't want closeness. Like it's clear that anxious attachment style really craves the attention, needs it, and wants reassurance and validation, right? But also, so does the avoidant. They really crave, and that's why all three of the not secure attachment styles are considered insecure. They really crave, because all of us as humans crave connection and closeness. But when you're avoidant, you just learned as a kid that your calls or your needs to be emotionally supported and connect with somebody on deeper levels, like maybe a parent, they didn't work. They weren't answering when you displayed more needy tendencies or tactics. The easiest way to explain this is just to say it from my experience, because if not, then I start getting all abstract and it gets lost in translation. I think actually I could be a really good example for this because I had a complicated upbringing, and I'm sure that a lot of you have too. But I had a father who was avoidant. Is avoidant. It's through no fault of his. He just never got the tools himself, right? So in his world, when he grew up, he probably got the message from his father that we don't talk about emotions, right? And just his era, his parents were in the Depression and all that. I think this is very common. And so he, in turn, to this day, when I mention anything deeper than the weather, and you guys have heard me talk about this, if you've been listening for a while, he doesn't know what to do with himself. He really becomes uncomfortable and he doesn't know how to relate. Like his brain doesn't go there deep like that. And when I say deep, I'm just talking about like, I'm feeling a little anxious today or something. Like he doesn't know what to do with that. And so when I needed that growing up, especially early years, he would turn away. It wasn't that he didn't love me. He just didn't know how to handle it. So he would walk away. And so I learned with my father that in order for me to receive love from him, I needed to avoid talking about my feelings, my emotions. That wasn't attractive. What was attractive and what brought him to me was me telling jokes, being funny, making fun of people who needed emotional support. My brother was needy in that way. And I knew I could get further with my father if I made fun of that. And it always worked. And I was always like the prized kid, the favorite for my dad. But with my mom was disorganized. And she was, in my opinion, in my experience, actually, the type of disorganized that was scary and very unpredictable. And because you can be disorganized or like display traits of both anxious and avoidant and not fly off the handle at any given second and have reactions that are disproportionate to the situation at hand. Does that make sense? But with my mom, that was our experience growing up. I say our, just meaning my dad's, mine, and probably my brother's too, is that we didn't know what was going to make her fly off. I didn't know. And so I also knew that her love came the same way. She would withhold love in order to make a point or to punish. That was my base model. of attachment, right? Was mom being disorganized and dad being avoidant. And so that's what I was working with when I entered into teen years and then adulthood. And then I chose people based on, this is everybody probably chose people based on my experiences in childhood. Sometimes I chose away from like what my mom displayed or my dad displayed. And sometimes I chose in alignment with, right? As a result, I actually developed both sides. I have anxious and avoidant, both. And it really depends on the relationship. Like when I had my daughter, even though then I was not necessarily fully consciously living, I was very intentional about the love that I showed her because I didn't want her to have the experience that I had growing up. Right. So I was very mindful with how consistent I was in the love that I showed her. Right. And I just didn't ever want to turn out like my mom. That was like a fear of mine from before. And so I really worked hard to monitor the way that I showed up in my relationship with her. Now, that's my relationship with my daughter was completely separate from the relationships that I had with like romantic partners, like even while I was momming my kiddo. That she herself never actually activated any sort of insecurity or avoidance in me because I decided otherwise intentionally that I was going to behave how I was going to show up moving forward, right? Where relationships, I chose different. And so I acted in different ways for that. Okay. The reason I'm talking about me so much is, like I said, it's easier for me to explain. And since I do have a tendency to go to kind of all of them, like really all of them, because today I know I have a more of a secure attachment style. It's, I don't mean to say that I'm a good example for this, but I think I kind of, at least I can talk about it in a way that seems full. Anyway, full dimensional. Back to where I was, all the way back to where I was. Another way that your attachment style affects your relationship with your kiddo and your just experience of your relationship with your kiddo is in the ability that you possess or the capacity really that you possess currently to provide stable emotional regulation for your child, right? Even from a distance. So if you are aware of your attachment style and are either working to change it or even if you're okay with it, just knowing where you're coming from, what your motivation is, can really inform the way that you provide stability, emotional stability for your child, even from afar, because of energies and because of whatever they do see of you, like the evidence that you're creating for yourself on a daily basis, like the prints that you're leaving throughout your day and anybody that you interact with. Those all add up. And at some point, some of that information will get back and like I said, the energies. So if you are stable and can regulate your own emotions, you are also modeling that to your child. So your attachment style really does motor you or steer you throughout every interaction that you have in your world and with yourself too. Because like I was talking about before, in those like the 4 quadrants, if you display any sort of anxious attachment traits, it's all going to be about you and how you're not good enough. And on the other side of things, if you're avoidant, it's never you and it's everybody else, right? And then the mix is both. But so it's really helpful to determine where you land there so that you can better understand your triggers and strategically choose responses or behaviors that support and advocate healing rather than perpetuate pain. Okay. All right. So let me just go over those because I got all like down a little rabbit hole of what my history is. Just to summarize that last little section there, attachment styles can directly, not just can, they do directly influence your emotional reactions to alienation on the whole, right? To feeling rejected, feeling hopeless, feeling angry, and also your emotional reactions throughout every hour of the day, your emotional responses when you're sleeping, even like your dreams. It affects everything really emotionally for you. Your attachment style directly influences your coping mechanisms, also your communication style, reunification attempts, right? Whether or not you try to keep that up, and also boundary setting with your child, which if you are anxious, this is or leaning towards the anxious attachment. This is a very difficult task for you. I know because I speak from experience too. Because why? Because from anxious attachment style, who's not enough? We are. We're the problem. And if we're scared, if we set a boundary, that what's going to happen to this relationship? Are they just going to say, forget it and leave us? And what even those boundaries that we're going to set, what's the motivation for them? Are we setting a boundary in order to get a response and bring them back? It's called an activating behavior. Like you do something, they move away from you, and you employ an activating behavior in order to hopefully draw them back to you. Sometimes it works, and most of the time it doesn't work. So anyway, and also attachment styles directly influence your ability to provide stable emotional regulation for yourself and for your child, right? Even from a distance. So whether it is that you are an anxious parent and that you repeatedly reach out and feel the intense rejection each time that they don't answer your attempt to connect, or you're an avoidant where you disengage and protect yourself and move away from and pretend like it's not happening, or maybe you're a mix of both like me. When you can recognize your own patterns, then you can better understand all of your triggers, all of your default tendencies, and then strategize and plan out, choose and execute responses that you know will work to your benefit in the long run. This is basically, actually, now that I just said it like that, your approach to your current attachment style and also where you want to be headed with your attachment style can directly affect your whole reunification process or the status of y'all's relationship, at least in the way that you view y'all's connection immensely. Like this can make or break your whole experience of alienation and of your life moving forward. Also, your partners, if you have one currently, or your future partners and your future you will want to reach out and give you a huge hug and thank you profusely when you take this approach of understanding where you currently are at with your attachment style and where you want to be, and start taking steps to execute the goals attachment style. It can change everything. Like if you are needy with your partner and that's getting old for them and also for you too, because it's not fun when you are an anxious and you're needing your partner, constantly wanting and desperately needing your partner to need you back. That it's an awful place to be. It's not only just a burden on the other person, it's really a burden is on you, you know? And I know, again, because I speak from experience. So, and the same thing with the avoidance. Avoidance, although they're pushing people away, all they really crave is intimacy and connection. It's just too much for them. Not because, okay, this is another thing too. So for me, I'm hoping some of you can relate to this and then maybe piece together what's going on for you by the examples that I'm giving about me today. But I know for me, I'm a mixed bag. Like I was talking about earlier, my dad was one way, my mom was another. I grew up kind of confused about how love was received by people in general and then by me. I was really genuinely confused by that. I had so many mixed messages growing up. And then, of course, my own story of sexual abuse when I was younger really confused things terribly for a long time. I'm just now really being able to separate all that stuff out. But then also my relationships moving forward, because my father was the avoidant, now still to this day, this is something I'm working on. If I am dating somebody or there's somebody there that I could possibly date, I can get the ick really quick with somebody, like bad, to the point where I'm repulsed by them, and have come to realize in the last few years that the reason that I get that ick, maybe some of you know this, but it was like a light bulb moment for me when I realized the reason I get that ick isn't because their behavior is actually repulsive or they're too needy or weak or something. It's because as a kid, my view of what a man should be was no feelings, right? That's what a man should be. And so now, not just the ideals, but because that was repressed in me as a kid, and also from my mom too, because my mom was, very sporadic with the way that she gave love. And really it depended on how I was needing it to come from her. She would shut me out too, which caused a lot of shame for me. But now when anybody needs the love from me, still to this day, I can get the ick because of my experience as a child, right? And maybe for you too. That's why I'm bringing this up, you know? So if you can easily be turned off by somebody and be like, nope, they're not for me, that's ick, you know? It might be because your nervous system, your whole internal, like your emotions on the inside, because you got shut down as a kid, your body learned to adapt and not show the hurt anymore from you being rejected by your parents or like turned down for love. So instead, you develop this aversity, this hatred towards that kind of behavior. But really, what that's hiding is the deep, profound feelings of loss and non-reciprocal emotional give and take. You know what I'm saying? I just was redundant, but like somebody else giving you love when you were asking for it. Hopefully that makes sense. So the ick came from not me actually truly being repulsed by the person, though it feels like it in the moment. The feelings came from unfulfilled love back in the day. In order for me to cope, and most people that are this way that have either avoidant or a mixed bag is instead of feeling compassionate or understanding, empathetic towards the person who needs you, like or acting more emotional to you, you instead shut that part of you down and want to punish that because it wasn't accepted in you. So why should it be accepted by this person? Right? It's you just learned, nope, that's not how we do things. And so the more that people need you, the more ick you get with them because it was never modeled to you. Where was I? Because I keep going off my notes today. So now I'm going to go to how your attachment style shapes your parent-child relationship, like with your kiddo. Okay. And so if you are a secure parent, you're most likely to see your child as a separate person, right? Like that they're able to regulate their own emotions and that you can maintain like attunement or presence, like understanding and being there for them, right? Even under stress. You're able to model to them love, unconditional love, and constant reciprocal acceptance and being aware of what they need, even in the middle of stress. Anxious parents may seek, and this is what I see a lot of my alienated parent, like my clients, come to me with, especially in the beginning, is that anxious parents seek constant reassurance from their child. And maybe not constant, but it's like this intermittent, like, I need something back from them. I need to know that they care still too, that they didn't mean the things that they said to me. I need to feel it. Somebody validate me, right? There's nothing wrong with the fact that you're like this. I want to continue to say this because this episode, anything I say, is never intended to shame or to say that what you're doing is wrong or that you need your child and that's not right. There's a reason why you're this way. And really, we don't even have to go back into your childhood. We could just say that alienation, the attempts to alienate, are enough for you to have developed some anxious attachment tendencies. Okay. So there's that. But anyway, so you can interpret back to if you do have the anxious traits in you, then you may interpret their absence as catastrophe, or you may struggle to tolerate any sort of uncertainty. Like you need to know all the answers, like now, because it's too much for you to handle. Anxious parents are obviously tend to default more towards the overwhelm and like, ooh, I don't know, this is too much, confusion, self-doubt, doubt that they'll ever want to come back to you because are you even good enough anyway? Oh, maybe the other parent is all good. Right? Maybe it was me. If you're anxious, then this is likely hitting home for you and is representative or represents your experience, right? Okay, so avoidant parents, if you're avoidant, you might minimize contact. You might be the one that first moves away. Like maybe things have been, depending on when y'all's relationship started to get interrupted, you may, to save your own, like regulate your own self emotionally, you may have been like, okay, well, obviously they don't want me. Forget it. I also have a lot of parents that come to me this way. I wouldn't say equal amount. I think I see more anxious tendency parents than I do avoidant, but that or a mix. But many parents will just be like, forget it. They rejected me. I'm done. That's because you are not as comfortable with vulnerability and intimacy. And you may unintentionally communicate emotional distance because of your body language or reactions actually under stress or under attack, if you will. You're like, forget it. I'll just save us all the trouble and I'll go over here and wait for them to contact me. That is a very safe behavior for somebody who's avoidant. I'm here. They know where I am. If they need me, I'll be here. I see um, a lot of parents like this. I was about to say, I notice this happen more with dads. I think that's just a result of how we're conditioned, though, from like an early age, like all of us. So I don't know. Anyway, but disorganized parents, you may alternate between clinging and rejecting behaviors. Maybe not rejecting behaviors, but like self protecting behaviors. You may struggle with boundaries. You may find it hard to regulate your own behaviors or emotions, right? Where you're up, down, it's more of a roller coaster. Again, this doesn't always have to be indicative of BPD or any sort of personality disorder, though it may be, and that's okay too. I think the key to all of this is becoming aware and then learning how to regulate yourself so that you can use even your quote unquote negative tendencies, if you will, to your benefit and start to use it all for you. All of this is just data. You collecting data about your life, like your past, your early childhood that was through no fault of yours that it happened. We're all just victims of victims of victims, right? We can learn how to interrupt the cycle of being victims of victims of victims and instead be survivors, start the whole survivor pattern, right? For us and for generations to come, if we like. Or maybe you don't like the word for survivor, it can be something else, overcomers, whatever. But it's really just data that you can use in order to uplevel your whole experience and your level of connection with all the people in your life. And also uplevel your capacity, capability, two different things, but capability to model effectively to your child from afar. So, how can we shift towards a secure attachment? And after this, y'all, if you're tempted to be like, okay, I know all about this, I'm going to do this section, which is how can you start to shift towards secure attachment. And then last, I'm going to talk about, I think it'll be last, I'm going to give you 3 actual like actionable behaviors. So right now I'm just going to talk to shifting your whole mindset towards a secure one. And then there's behaviors. So the first one, it's obvious because I've been saying it throughout, is to develop self-awareness. Learn your attachment style, trace the patterns that you have displayed in relationships, and observe your responses, especially in the moments of stress or rejection. That's super important because listen, like I said earlier, I think I mentioned that you could have had a secure attachment all the way up to even the relationship, the dysfunctional relationship you had with your ex or whatever that was with your ex. You could have carried a secure attachment, but then the second that your child or children became alienated or that threat was there, you could have developed anxious or avoidant tendencies, right? That could have shifted, like started the shift of sort of a new chapter for you. And that could have actually metastasized. Is that the word I want to use? Sort of like, yeah, reproduced into other areas of your life as a result of the anxiety and the not enoughness you might feel because of the alienation. Okay. So really observe the responses you've had in the past in the moments of stress or rejection. Okay. Also practice self-compassion. Recognize that your attachment styles are adaptations to like whatever your environment was in early on. Like, so you had that base model that you've been working with and you still probably are working with. We all kind of are, I think. I don't know. Maybe you've completely departed from it, but the base model is of your parents or your early caregivers, right? And then your working model is this model that you've developed and you're still developing every day, every moment of your life moving forward in the way that you choose to think, like the thoughts that you choose to carry with you about each and every tiny little experience you have in each one of your days. How you speak to somebody at the gas station, how they speak to you, how you interpret that in your brain, and how you file that away. That is going to contribute to your attachment style. Even those kinds of interactions, well, the seemingly like trivial interactions, how you interacted in early life, like with teachers and your first job and whatever, of course, your first romantic partner, and then how that's evolved. Maybe you can look at just a slight overview. This doesn't need to take more than, a few minutes really, but it will probably be going on in the background of your mind once you've now listened to this episode. And if you're really committed to looking at your attachment style, then it'll probably be working in the background of your mind for however long until you've figured it all out for yourself. But this may be, hopefully, since this is the first time we've talked about it, depending on what else you've got going on, now you'll put like a pin. It's like you've dropped a pin in this area of your healing so that you can start to notice any patterns moving forward. But really what I want to drive home to you guys is give yourself some grace and practice the self-compassion for your whole experience moving forward. You didn't know up until whenever it is that you did know that your behaviors were developing and reinforcing certain habits and tendencies and your attachment style, really. Okay. So engage in therapy or coaching that is centered on your attachment-based approaches. This is what I work with my clients all throughout their time with me, is we're working on becoming aware of the patterns, the responses that you have, and your idea, your beliefs of who you are as a parent, as a productive member of society, as a human being. We become aware of, dismantle your whole belief system, and then put it back together in a way that works for you moving forward, right? You get to decide that. So you're choosing your future reactions to all these given scenarios and the way that you think about yourself so that you can use those as responses for yourself in your default thinking, like your unconscious, subconscious thinking while you're in your day. Unhelpful thought about yourself comes up and an anxious reaction happens, right, for you. And you can now then be like, oh, I recognize it. This comes from my anxious beliefs based and I'm not enough. But now I have this new thought already ready to put in place of this other old unhelpful thought. It's really a thought error. Now I have a new belief ready. Anyway, this is what my coaching is centered on, basically, is that I help my clients to really become securely attached in their whole world that they're living, so that you know that not only are you enough, but there's no anxiety about the anxiety or low anxiety about the anxiety, if any at all, and that you can handle anything and everything that comes your way. You know, many of you have that belief, or you want to have that belief, like it's there up and not. A lot of us work this way, where we have these baby beliefs, if you will, these like young beliefs that in our higher thinking has either come up with or we've adopted or want to adopt from other people. We're like, yeah, maybe you have that with some of the things that I've said either today or some other day, right? Where it's like, I know that that's where I want to be headed from my higher thinking executive functions. That's the belief I really want. But, and though, like, if you were to answer like on a questionnaire, you would go with this higher thinking belief. When it comes to your day to day, you're not using your higher thinking in your default immediate reactions. You're working from your subconscious, but deeper beliefs. What do they say? Like 97% of your life is lived from your instant reactions, what you think about how you fit into the world. Really, it's the subconscious. So we have to, especially coming from what we have, the trauma that we have, the ongoing trauma, like injuries that we have. At some point, when you're doing the work with me, those ongoing injuries, they stop becoming injuries. They stop becoming gashes. Not that you aren't hurt by them, but they're easily recoverable or just bounce right back off of you. Like for me, most of the stuff that happens, I had a new client actually ask me after that episode that I did 2 weeks ago about being blocked from my daughter. She was really disappointed for me and said, I just want more for you. Are you okay with the fact that she blocked you? And for me, I was like, oh yeah, it's not a problem. Like it actually, I love my daughter and I wish that she didn't. And I was disappointed in the moment, when it happened and probably for a couple days past that. But I wasn't taking it personally, right? It wasn't a personal attack and I didn't have a gaping wound from her blocking me or from any of the words that she said. Right? Where my default used to be, how could they have done that? Why am I blocked? And I would have taken that to mean something about me, right? Where today I know that that is just one more step on the way to our reunification. It's just a necessary step that had to happen. It's okay. No matter what, it's totally fine with me because my belief truly, don't even consider that it could be any other way that I'm the problem or that on the other side, if I was avoidant, leaning into avoidant behaviors, then I would think that she was the problem or they were. Well, we all know with alienation, somebody was acting to stand between us and our kids, right? So, sure. But I'm not focusing on anybody being the problem here. I'm just focusing on the steps and the necessary actions that need to happen in order for us to get there. That's where my belief lies, right? And that's what happens as a result of doing this work. Okay. So I'm really talky today, and I hope that this doesn't come out all focused on me because that's not really what I'm doing. It's just the easiest way to talk about things sometimes is to just say it with my own experience. Anyway, so that was all from my one thing that says engage in therapy or coaching centered on attachment-based approaches. The next one is actually everything I was just talking about is to repair your self-beliefs. Cultivate a sense of worthiness and challenge the narratives of not enough or unlovable, which I was basically just talking about right there, right? Which are the root of your anxious or avoidant patterns, is like feeling like either that you're not enough or they're unlovable, somebody's the problem. It's more of a punitive way of viewing relationships, interactions in the world, and on both sides, on anxious and avoidant. They're both punitive. Like somebody's got to be the problem here, you know, or some action has to be the problem. It's blame based, I think. So repair your self beliefs. Focus on attunement instead of aiming for perfect parenting or some reunion. Aim for moments of genuine presence, which I was again just touched on with this whole process with me and my daughter. This was just another step in the process to reunification, but it's not that I need that to happen now or that anything short of reunification is a fail. That's definitely not the case, you know? This is all just my desire to connect with her and connect also with myself to my deeper the role that I know that I'm here to play for her, right? And that's to benefit me and her and whoever, right? Is to like each one of these little actions that we take or interactions that we have, these are all just responses that I have pre-planned out that align with my purpose to be present, find ways to be present for her and for myself. So aim for moments of genuine presence, whether through like written messages, in-person contact, visualizing positive connection, which is something that I'm actually having that same client. I'm having her do mock connection experiences basically with herself for her kids, right? I'm having her do an exercise that I'm having her do where she's not actually connecting or reaching out, but she's doing that with herself, pretending like her kid is there. They're just practice rounds of her visualizing positive connection, how she can show up and model to them, coming from a positive, secure role, her role. And what we all, I think, naturally from a time of birth really do have is that secure love and role, right? We all do have it there. It's just that things happen and they take us off our path, you know, along the way. And so that's our responsibility to find our way back. But now I'm getting into the weeds again. So, um, right. Aim for moments of genuine presence. Build on emotional regulation skills, right? Learn and implement grounding, mindfulness, and even somatic exercise or practices that help you to stay anchored, especially when triggered by experiences that happen as a result of alienation. Okay. Basically, it's just get your toolbox, stock your toolbox with all of the responses and helpful things to be redundant tools that you can use in the moments of stress, you know? But don't just know the tools like because you read them or you heard them without practicing them. You really want to practice these tools so that they become second nature, become very familiar with them because in the moments of high stress, you're not going to recall those things that you just heard them once or you tell yourself you're going to remember them. You really need to make this whole process, each one of these episodes that I do, it's all a practice. It is a way of life that you, I really think that, I mean, I guess it can't hurt if you or just want to, cherry pick ideas. I mean, I think that can be helpful a lot of times, like take what you like, leave the rest. But if you're not fully committed to making a practice out of your healing and utilizing the tools that you want, that you decide, if you're not fully committed to that, you're going to have a harder time finding a lasting relief, and finding, look, even being able to emotionally regulate. If you're only dipping your foot in here and there and just having the tools because you've heard them or somebody told you about something, oh, yeah, I know some stuff to do. A lot of people do that. I used to do that too. Oh, I know some stuff. And I would be well versed on that stuff. But did I practice it every day? And the difference was, is maybe I could be well versed and I could go share it with somebody else, right? But the way that I felt on the daily, the way that I experienced my world was, it was a huge departure. Like there was a huge gap in between what I knew and what, of course, I had the wisdom from because I did all the practice. Okay. I don't want to be staring on my soapbox here, but it is really helpful to build on the emotional regulation skills, not just have them sitting in your back pocket or like in a corner somewhere. Okay. Seek corrective relationships is the last one. And I worded that this way on purpose because you want to strengthen and really mindfully look at, maybe take like a little audit or an assessment of your current relationships, and are they supportive or are they not? And it doesn't always have to be the other person's fault. This isn't really about fault, but do I feel supported around in this relationship or do I not feel supported in this relationship? And whatever you determine, would I feel more supported outside of this relationship? How do I feel when I'm away from that person? Do I feel more supported, things are more flowy, or are they not? And that can help you to decide whether you want to stay with those, have those relationships in your life, you want to spend less time with them or whatever. But it's really important to look at the support, who you're surrounding yourself with, right? Also, not just with your significant other relationship or your friendships, your family, and also the professionals that you choose to put yourself around. Those bonds, if you're choosing on purpose, like you're choosing not coming from anxious attachment or avoidant attachment, but you're choosing coming from what can I do to create the most supportive environment for myself moving forward, the most supportive relationships, the corrective relationships, the ones that go to the opposite way of maybe that, like if you had a relationship that really pulled out the anxious in you, like I can look back on my life and like the last guy, he really pulled out the anxious attachment that I had in me, really pulled it out. He was avoidant. And so I became anxious in that relationship. Not all of my relationships are like that, In fact, a lot of, anyway, it doesn't matter. But in that one, it really did. And it was a awful experience the whole time we were together. I mean, agonizing experience. Because in my mind, he activated this part of me like, no, I can change him. I can help them. Even saying that, I was. Anyway, when you now choose secure attachment styles or an attachment style that does not decompensate or does not undermine your attempts to heal yourself and does not undermine your intentions, you will find that that those healthy relationships could really heal your attachment style moving forward. Like, let's say you're anxious and you get with a secure person. Don't go for an avoidant person if you're anxious, okay? It will it will cause you a special kind of hell on top of already experiencing alienation. And that's another point I wanted to mention is that your attachment style is so important to understand about yourself, not only like yes, with your kiddo and the way that you show up for your relationship with your kiddo, even from afar, the way that you experience your relationship with your kiddo, even from afar, right? We have a lot of alone time being alienated parents, and the way that you experience yourself and them in this whole mess will literally make or break the way that you see life. If you feel like life is very dark, hopeless, and the only way you'll be happy is if they come back to you, that is really something to look at, because in that place, I would just given that information there, it's more of an anxious attachment style. That's going to affect that. But then if you are then with a partner who is avoidant on top of this rejection situation that you're in, it's only going to compound your feelings of worthlessness, because now nobody wants to be with you. And that can also, the relationship that you have with a significant other, even if it's whatever it is going on there, even other relationships where somebody else is avoiding you and you're going and chasing them, it's going to reinforce the tendency to be anxious. And then you're going to transfer that, sort of project that onto your kid. So I wish I actually would have said that in the beginning, because that's really important for y'all if you are there to understand about yourself, and the way that you can heal yourself is kind of counterintuitive to what you would probably choose otherwise, especially for us as alienated parents. Letting go, having the courage to let go of the relationships where somebody is avoiding you, like in your adult relationships, and then replacing that avoidant relationship with your own love for you, like really learning how to love yourself and be there for yourself and sort of heal. I know this is going to sound kind of woo and whatever, but like heal the emotional wounds that you had from your needs not being met as a kiddo. Not for a way for you to look back and, well, it was me and my needs weren't met, but more like really now take the proactive approach to your healing by really providing for you, reparenting yourself, like providing for yourself what you did not receive then is number one in repairing the relationship with yourself and also with your kids eventually, right? But two is to now choose relationships where the other person is either secure. Yeah. I mean, if you're an anxious attachment style, then choosing a secure partner would really help you to heal those wounds that you've had, to heal your view and your expectations on the world. Because if you're choosing avoidant, then you're constantly feeling disappointed and disappointing yourself. They're disappointed. And so, though you may have learned as a child that in order for it to be love, this is where I was. And I talked about this, and if you haven't listened or watched that episode back, not this last spring, but the spring before it, I was talking about childhood. I have to maybe link it, but how your childhood trauma informed all of your decisions leading up to alienation. It was May, like 24. That would be a good one for you to go back to and listen. I cannot remember it. I'll link it below. I promise I will. Neurons that fire together, wire together. And basically, if your parent, one of your parents, provided love, right? But there were mixed messages, and also provided or instilled a sense of fear in you, or like that you weren't going to be taken care of, like needs not being met. The chances are high that in today's world, if you haven't done the work to heal that, that now you still are attracted to people who aren't there for you and won't be there for you. And you can actually only see or feel love, or that's what you identify as love, from people who are also causing fear, causing insecurity, and maybe even danger in your life. Like that feels like love for you, to have love and fear coming from the same source. Then it's going to be difficult for you to shift over to a secure, like if it's a romantic relationship, secure partner, because it's going to feel boring. You might even feel like they're not interested in me. There's not that that spark that you might have felt in previous relationships that clearly were dysfunctional or weren't good for you. Maybe good for the both of you. Who knows, It's an adjustment. And it's because me meaning, but probably you too, tend towards the hypervigilance. Like me, because of my mom, I always had to be on alert because her style was chaotic. I learned to be hypervigilant growing up. I'm constantly like on edge about like what. And so now to this day, like if you, without even trying to pay attention, you notice when people have their hair cut, you notice when something's slightly different, when other people don't notice it. You're just highly attuned to how other people show up. It's likely because it goes back to hypervigilance from early years or previous years, let's just say, because it could have happened in adulthood too. You could have had a secure relationship and then ended up, even by luck of the draw, it happens, isolated sort of incidents, even if there's spurts where you have a secure attachment and end up with a partner who is not and is in fact highly dysfunctional. But if you ended up staying with them, it's because you kept giving them chances. Because in your mind, everybody deserves a second chance or a third chance. And you just keep giving them a chance because of your commitment to the relationship, because you are securely attached. You're like, it's okay. I can carry us both, right? There's so much to talk about. And that's why I said today is just like a day that we're opening the conversation. And that's why today I'm actually recording on the day that I'm releasing, and I'm going to have to go edit it. And I've been talking for so long that I probably should shut up. But so right now, what I'm going to do, I talked about seeking corrective relationships. I'm going to give you those 3 behaviors that can help you to move towards secure attachment. Okay. By the way, I want to say too that I need to give acknowledgement or respect, or just say that a lot of the information that I know today, and I'd have to go back because it's been so long, but the same counselor that introduced me to the term parental alienation back in the day, and it was right when I was going through that breakup with the other guy, she suggested the book Attached. And I tell you, it was like somebody turned the light on in a very otherwise dark existence when I read that book. And so I definitely need to say that much of what I'm sharing with you here is probably based off of some version of that book, along with all of the classes that I took and education that I had. But the 3 behaviors that move you toward secure attachment, I got this from that book. And I wrote it in my notes from like a long time ago, and I found them and reinterpreted it to be for our kids. The 3 behaviors that move you towards secure attachment are to be present and supportive, be available by responding lovingly and sensitively, check in with them from time to time if that's an option for you, and provide comfort when things go wrong. The reason I point this out, and this seems like like intuitive, this is what a parent's job is, but when we're coming from something like what we are, the tendency is to lean towards self-protection or neediness, right? Depending on what your style is. Instead, you really want to be mindful about whatever interactions that you do have with them, even if that's only in your head. You want to replace neediness, not ignore neediness, but just mindfully interrupt and replace neediness or avoidance with being present and supportive for them, of them, being available for them no matter what, because we are the parents. So responding in a loving and sensitive way, right, for their experience. Again, I know this is all intuitive, but I think it's different when you're applying these behaviors intentionally in order to heal your attachment wounds, if you will, and theirs possibly. Allow them to be dependent on you when they need. And so what I mean here is that many parents will be like, well, they're only coming to me for when they need something. They only come and get money from me and go away, or whatever it is that you might be saying if you are. Here, just live by this rule of I'm going to allow them to be dependent on me when they need. I'm going to be there for them to the extent, of course, that you can, of course, with boundaries. I wouldn't give everything up for them and so that you have nothing, but obviously just be as present and supportive as you possibly can, and know that they will be coming in and out, because the natural, oh my gosh, I have so much to say about this, because the natural parent-child relationship, it should be, and I heard this somewhere too. You hear about helicopter parents, or like, I don't know, they have all those different nicknames for the styles but like usually in today's world, the way that I think that, coming from the anxious part of me, I thought that I needed to be like a helicopter parent, and that I always needed to be overseeing or making sure that I knew all the things. I think that also came from alienations, like the tactics started really early on, right when we split and she was young. But so there was that insecurity that was there because I was, like I said, I was really intentionally trying to be a secure presence for her, right? Grounding presence for her. But because of that, of my role being threatened, I would go on high alert to parent her. And my overcompensation, I guess, in my role as parent had me drawn to her and hovering over. And what they say instead, the comparison is like a bee to a flower. And so I was in the bee role, right? Like hovering over her being the flower, right? Watching her every move to see if she was hurt or it's going to fall or she needed anything. Are you okay? Are you okay? How can I help you? Blah, 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 right? All hands on. Instead, what they say about a healthy model for a parent-child relationship is that you are the flower and the child is the bee, and they will come in and need love, and then they will go out and they will go explore. And then they will come in, and because you are the grounding presence, they keep coming back to you. They will always come back when you're there. This is when they're little and they're not being alienated, right? They will always come back because this is where the nectar is or whatever. Because you're always providing that love, they will come back anytime they need. And that's how it's supposed to be. But the hovering ends up going into the enmeshment and insecurity, you needing them. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. So be available, be present, be supportive. The other behavior, next behavior, is don't interfere. You offer them behind the scenes support. Okay. Offer them a handful of solutions for them to choose from instead of micromanaging and undermining their abilities, their autonomy, really. At any age, you can start this, even as toddlers. You just do it with smaller things, obviously, and then move on up. But really, as you guys all know, the whole point of parenting is to bring them up so that they can be self-reliant and go out into the world and be productive members of society, obviously. But a lot of times because of our insecure or anxious attachments or whatever it is that's going on for us, we end up reversing that without even knowing. And we're already dealing with that with alienation as a whole, but then we're needing them. And so we're not supporting them, even though we say we're supporting them, we're actually looking for validation, and things get further reversed as if they already aren't with the alienation, right? So instead, try not to interfere with them becoming individuals, right? To having their own autonomy. That's the whole point of this whole parenting thing anyway. Bring them up so that they can go out and flourish. So allow them to make the mistakes, allow them to fall, right? And yeah, so that's that. And then the last one is encouragement. Always be there to be their biggest cheerleader, their biggest fan, right? Be accepting of their goals and help to boost their self-esteem. Be there to help them get accomplished what they want, whatever that is. Be a resource for them to help them get to where they're going, wherever that is. Even if you see that where they want to go isn't right or useful or a good purpose in your mind, whatever it is that you're saying to yourself, help them to be more of who they are, even in their journey to find themselves, or even in their mistake making. Yeah. So just be the encourager, their source for renewing their energy, right? Be refreshing to them and supportive. All right. With alienation, as you guys always all know, like think about it with you. Would you rather, like, let's say you have a goal or something's going on and maybe you're not on the best terms with one of your parents, but wouldn't you rather going to one of your parents and having them be excited for you about some goal that they really don't care about for you and really they have other ideas for you? Maybe you know that. But with you coming to them with whatever you're doing and them responding in the moment to you, for you, with excitement and support, and how can I help you? What's next for you? What else can I help you with? I'm so excited for this new project that you're starting, no matter what. Even if you think it's going to fail, so what? What really is going to help them is them feeling your support in the moment, even for the things that may fail. Don't worry about that. The real failure is one, them even not trying or you not showing up in a way that feels good for the both of you in the end, you know? The real fail is you avoiding the whole thing or working against what they think is going to make them happy, you know? Especially going through what they have. Like, if you can be that source, if they're not, especially if they're not getting it from the other side, then it's going to be one more thing that's going to draw them to you, you know? Okay, I have to go. Let me just recap main points of this whole episode is that number one, attachment is not some destiny of yours. It's always possible to change and adapt and work towards having a different attachment style. Okay. So it's not the end all be all. You're not always going to be anxious or you're not always going to be avoidant or the mix between the two. It's okay no matter what you are. You developed the way that you developed in order to get your needs met in the most efficient way for you back when you did develop the traits that you have today. Understanding your own attachment style provides tools for healing and reconnecting, especially regardless of your child's current status or readiness. I'm going to repeat that. Understanding your own style provides all that you need for healing and reconnection, regardless of their readiness. And what I mean is you're not going to force the reconnection on them. But when you are already there at reconnection, let's say that's your destination. I want to eventually reconnect with my child, and hopefully you'd also want to create a good experience for you along the way, right? You can already get there and feel connected to your child even from afar, or being so open to receiving, and you already believing that connection is uninterrupted. Maybe the experiences, your exchanges have been interrupted, but that connection will always be there and it's stronger than ever. Then when they do come, they're going to be it's going to feel that much more welcoming and open and doable for them and for you, right? But when you're seeing that there's a barrier in between you and them and you're focusing on that barrier, that's all you will see, you know? So focus on your style and developing tools and practices that support your healing and y'all's healing. Okay. Secure attachment is about being good enough no matter what. Everybody is good enough, right? It provides safety, predictability, and openness to repair. It's not about perfect responses. It's not about being a perfect human. It's not about right or wrong. It's about how you experience your world from today moving forward. It's about feeling enough and feeling that whoever you choose to be in relationship with is also enough. And it's not about anybody falling short, but about you learning how to connect and work together. Focus on shifting your inner narratives and emotional patterns, which will ripple out into all the parent-child interactions, even when contact is limited. So really, that's where all the focus should be. And I know that you guys get this from every single one of the episodes that I've done thus far. It's your focus needs to be mostly centered on you and your attempts and your goals, what's right for you, pre-decided, right? And aligning your core values, which you've pre-decided. If you work with me, then you do. Aligning all of your actions up with your core values moving forward. Does this align? Does it not align? The way that we go about it simplifies all of this so that your work moving forward isn't confusing and your choices moving forward aren't confusing. You're just following a very intuitive plan for yourself so that you're not feeling like you have to rely on me or anybody else to make your decisions once our time's spent together. Or if you're not even working with me and you're just doing this, just pre-decide what your core values are. And then each time something comes up in your day, decide how you want to behave based on your current core values that you want to be displaying and feeling and showing in your life, right? Does this align with my core value of being present, or does it work against being present? So this whole roadmap encourages your purpose, a sense of agency, and practical self-reflection, empowering you to heal yourselves first and have that be a foundation for repairing and supporting y'all's parent-child relationship, right? So all of this is all the work that you do in order to create a foundation for repairing the work that you and your kiddos will do. You have to have this work done first, in my opinion. Okay, I gotta go because I gotta go edit that. It's already 3 o'clock. I will talk to you next week.